Why are the Houston Texans so underrated? While there's no fantastic positional group on the roster, there's no bad group either. With new coaching hires, including the best head coach hire of this cycle, the Texans' future is looking bright. I'm Chase Keller, and tune into this dive of the Houston Texans roster, why I believe they're going to finish 7-10, and why they came up in 22nd on my 2023 NFL Power Rankings. It is an understatement for me to say that I was shocked by the Houston Texans selecting quarterback C.J. Stroud with the second overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft.
The Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State.
They took Stroud? At the time, my thoughts consisted of primarily negatives about the selection. And this lasted about 3 minutes until the Texans, trade Houston to number 3. So before I go into the negatives about CJ Stroud as an incoming rookie, why don't I discuss the positives about him first? So first off, CJ Stroud has all of the tools to become an MVP candidate later in his career. He measures at 6'3", 214 pounds, which is a prototypical quarterback size. The arm talent can also be set on the same level as some of the NFL's best quarterbacks. When in a clean pocket, Stroud is absolutely elite, completing 71.7% of his passes for 3,253 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, and 4 interceptions in 2022. Even in general, the arm strength is present, the accuracy is dead-eye, and the mechanics are pretty good for a prospect as well. According to ESPN, there are reports of improved play, which gives closure that Stroud will in fact be the starting quarterback by week 1, with reports such as Stroud looking comfortable playing under center despite not playing under center much with Ohio State, along with other reports of good mental plays here and there. It's looking up for Stroud. The negative about CJ Stroud stems from possibly the most important attribute of an NFL quarterback, and that is his poise. His poise is a little bit underwhelming, and it's not going to work out if he gets drafted to a team like the Texans or the Raiders. Stroud may work the same, which is going to bring down his stock, as that just screams system quarterback. In 2022, CJ Stroud under pressure completed 41.3% of his passes for 431 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. There was also a turnover-worthy play percentage of 7.2%, which was one of the worst in NCAA, and that came for 8 plays in general, which was the same as a clean pocket and nearly a quarter of dropbacks. More of a statistical takeaway is CJ Stroud having a passer rating of 76 while under pressure. So while shown on tape, everything just falls apart when CJ Stroud gets under pressure. This primarily includes his decision making, which could lead to a 15+ interception season. So given the poise and consistencies of Stroud, this quarterback battle is something to watch for. Despite going 5-19-1 as a starter, Mills could still very well be the starter by week 1. Mills is also extremely questionable under pressure, but he also doesn't have a lot of elite or upside-filled traits like CJ Stroud does. Reports are that Mills is heavily improving his work ethic to try and keep that starting job. So you may be asking, what are my opinions on this QB battle? Well, it's fairly simple, as I like Stroud a lot more than Davis Mills. As a rookie, CJ Stroud is already up to a 77 overall on my board, and currently Mills is at a 68 overall. I understand the talent on the offense is not great, but when you look at the statistics and see back-to-back seasons with 32nd and 31st in yards, that's concerning for Davis Mills. Given the heavy refurbishments of this offense, that offensive ranking should improve no matter who plays quarterback. To summarize, the Texans quarterback battle is going to be one to monitor. While it's unsure who will be the starter week 1, it's very clear that the Texans are looking to move forward with CJ Stroud in the future. And if Stroud's poise can even become average, the ceiling is in the sky for this Texans offense. So, speaking of the new offensive refurbishments, I'm not sure why the offseason from the Houston Texans isn't talked about more. In my books, their offseason grade is an A+. When you look at the consistency of the offseason, being able to re-sign some key pieces, having a phenomenal free agency, and having a top 8 draft in the NFL, the Houston Texans heavily improved on paper. With an average offseason, this team is likely 30th in my power rankings. But with how under the radar the offseason went this year, that's why this team is so underrated. Their re-signings weren't phenomenal, but they did retain Javier Thomas, who I've had a 68 overall on my board. Thomas is mainly a high-valued special teams guy who has also shown defensive efficiency in the last 2 seasons by playing over 1,000 snaps. They also re-signed a couple of other guys, one being Naveal Hewitt, who I'm not a fan of, but they still retained a valuable piece in the offseason. Free agency is where it gets good. Let's start with the best contract and start with Jimmy Ward at a 78 overall on my board. While being a soon-to-be 32-year-old safety, he is elite in run support and helps the team not be the NFL's worst run defense like it was last year. He's also very solid in coverage and has shown top 8 safety flashes. I understand he's getting old, but a 2-year, $13 million contract is an absolute steal for Houston. They got another great contract out of a 75 overall Robert Woods. He's already being forgotten about after 1 year with the Rams. He was being put in a whack quarterback situation with Tennessee, and before then, he was a great slot receiver with reliability anywhere on the field. Robert Woods is a 31-year-old veteran who is going to help develop a cluster of young wide receivers on this roster. And note that the contract was 2 years, $15.25 million, which is great. And quite possibly the highest upside pickup for this team in free agency was running back Devin Singletary, who is a 79 overall on my board. So when we're discussing youth, I currently like Singletary more than Pierce, even though I'm not expecting that to last long after Pierce's rookie season. Nonetheless, even if Singletary is the backup, that is one of the best injury supports you can ask for a running back. And let's note that the contract was 1 year, $2.75 million, which is another great contract. But I've been on this enough. They also signed cornerback Shaq Griffin, defensive lineman Hassan Ridgeway, quarterback Case Keenum, wide receiver Noah Brown, and the best signing they made this offseason was linebacker Denzel Perryman. Perryman is quietly a very good linebacker in run defense, as he's got great tackling technique and elite containing capabilities. And on top of 11 other signings, meaning 24 total, they only lost 12 people. So a lot of improvements were made in free agency. And we haven't even gotten to the draft yet. They drafted CJ Stroud 2nd overall, and I discussed him before, but he's an A- selection. Then they traded up to get Will Anderson 3rd overall, who is an elite pass rusher and my number 1 overall prospect in the 2023 NFL draft. He has all of the tools to become the NFL's best defender. Then they selected Tank Dell at pick 69, who is not a terrible selection given the situation. He adds even more youth to the wide receiver core, who is anchored by Robert Woods, as I mentioned earlier. Some other good selections that the Texans made were Dylan Horton, Henry To'oTo'o, and Xavier Hutchinson. To'oTo'o and Hutchinson being A+ selections. But then they also have the biggest WTF pick in this draft with Juice Scruggs at 62. He is an undrafted talent in my opinion. He's very unathletic laterally and his technique is extremely raw. So I gave this selection an F at the draft and it's still an F now. But back to the positives. Summarizing this section, the Houston Texans had quietly one of the best off seasons in the NFL. There's no doubt that the Texans made these transactions to help improve the overall roster. Now it's just time to utilize them properly. So with all of these transactions, the Houston Texans have become extremely... As I previously mentioned, the Houston Texans have developed a very consistent roster with no bad positional groups. While they don't have an elite group, they definitely have security in both veteran leadership and youth upside. So let's go through the top positional groups. Starting with cornerbacks led by Desmond King II, Steven Nelson, and 2022 draft selection Derek Stingley. Going into my own personal dive on this team, I was not expecting this cornerback room to be so good. And it starts with Desmond King at an 81 overall, who is quite possibly the most underrated cornerback in the NFL. What popped on tape specifically with him was athleticism, efficiency in the slot, and blitzing upside. Then there's Steven Nelson at a 78 overall, and I haven't heard his name in a couple of years, yet he's still the efficient coverage corner that I remember. At 30 years old, he brings worthy veteran leadership, and he was also an 85 overall just 2 years ago. Then you have Derek Stingley II at a 76 overall. This is a primarily negative player to talk about, as he was a big letdown in his rookie season last year. He lost 2 overall points, being a 78 overall prospect coming into the league, which was tied with Sauce Gardner. We know which way Sauce Gardner went, and it's primarily because of his coverage, where he allowed 12.5 yards per reception. Add that on to his lackluster run defense, and you have a disappointing season. Yet he's still a 76 overall, and the consistent high overalls continue with Shaq Griffin, who I just talked about. The edge rushers are the second best positional group on this roster, led by rookie Will Anderson Jr., Jerry Hughes, and Jonathan Greener. Anderson Jr. at an 80 overall, I already talked about him earlier, so there's not much to say. Jerry Hughes at a 75 overall is almost 35 years old, and he's still showing efficiency as he goes into his 14th season. He's a good pass rusher, putting together 49 plus pressures in each of his last 10 seasons, including 66 just 3 years ago. Yet he's always been a bad finisher, as in 2022 he missed 45.7% of his tackles, which was the second most among all players, with 400 plus snaps behind Bills rusher AJ Epineza. And a guy who showed flashes in 2021 is Jonathan Greener at a 73 overall. He hasn't been anything fantastic, but he's a reliable run defender off the edge if needed. Once again, the consistency sticks with the new pickup of Chase Winovich. The third best room on this team is the running back room, led by Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce. I'm not spending much time on each player. I want to talk about how these two are a fantastic running back duo. As I previously mentioned, I like Singletary more right now, and I think he is one of the more underrated running backs in the NFL. Yet, I'm expecting Pierce to haul the load in 2023 with his all-around traits, including elusiveness and physicality. The worst group is the interior defensive line, led by Sheldon Rankins and Malik Collins. These two starters aren't too shabby, but the depth is what holds them back. Hassan Ridgeway at a 61 overall hasn't been good every season that he's played more than 200 snaps, and Roy Lopez at a 59 overall just isn't a starting caliber lineman. He's played over 500 snaps in both of his career seasons, so the signings of Rankins and Ridgeway should prevent him from doing that again. Then there's the tight end room, led by Dalton Schultz and Brevin Jordan. This room has upside, and I've already discussed Schultz going into this season. Brevin Jordan has 2 seasons under his belt, and he has been nothing great yet. He is still very young, and he's still at a 64 overall. Yet losing 72 overall Jordan Akins was crucial for this tight end room's consistency. And finally, you also have the linebacker core, led by Denzel Perryman, Corey Littleton, and Henry To'o. I've already discussed Perryman, so let's talk about the other two. Corey Littleton is a bit underrated from what I saw from him. Before 2022, I was not a fan of him, but he would have been a top 15 linebacker in the NFL last year if he played more snaps. And now he's a soon-to-be 30-year-old veteran, so now you have another veteran bringing leadership to this roster. And Henry To'o was an A+ steal for the Texans in the 2023 NFL Draft. He has elite run defense, and he's always a barrier on the inside. So to summarize, there aren't any bad positional groups while not having elite ones either. So with this great consistency, the Texans shouldn't be elite, but they should be better than the media is shaping them out to be. So before I end this video, I want to go over a summary of offense, defense, special teams, and coaching. If you're interested in how the rating system works, it is in the description below. So starting with offense, they had a 74.38, which was 21st in the NFL, 13th in the AFC, and 2nd in the AFC South. The defense is a 74.61, which is 12th in the NFL, yet 8th in the NFC, and 1st in the AFC South. The special teams is a 71.52, which is 18th in the NFL, 8th in the AFC, and 3rd in the AFC South. And the coaching is a 75 out of 80, which is tied for 23rd in the NFL, tied for 13th in the AFC, and 4th in the AFC South. As an overall team, they came out at a 74.44, which is 22nd in the NFL, 13th in the AFC, and 2nd in the AFC South. So that wraps up this video. If you guys enjoyed this dive into the Texans roster, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this one. We have 21 teams left to rank, so don't miss out on those. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.